Small ones are more juicy seems to become a kind of unofficial theme for my summer riding as we continue to look at the fun of sizzling little 400 sports bikes. Now, we've already done the two best sellers, both from Honda, the CBR and the VFR. This week it's Yamaha and the FZR. And it might not be the best of sellers, in fact it's probably amongst the worst of sellers, but it does have some little charms all of its own, and there are some very good reasons for looking at one. First and foremost being that of all of the 400s, it's probably the most flexible. You can actually squeeze an extra few bhp. You can raise it from about 63 to the best part of 70. You can actually get some surprisingly good results just by changing the can, which has already happened on this one, and dynajetting it. The result is, well, quite a nippy thing. Don't forget, when you've only got a few bhp to play with, every extra one makes a big difference. It's often been said that if you were going to race a 400, then okay, the CBRs and VFRs of this world are very good, but an FZR with its extra flexibility and tunability is certainly worth a shout. There's no doubt about it that with its incredibly fast turn and its nimble agility and surprising turn of speed at the high revs, a well-ridden 400 will just absolutely show a clean pair of heels to any good mid-range 600, which is good news for the growing number of people who are going for them. And it's not just the fun of running inside a much larger, more powerful bike either that's in their favour, because there's expense. This G-plate, in pretty decent nick, is up for grabs at about $250, something like that. They may not be the cheapest little bikes to get into, but once you've bought it, there's one massive saving to be made, particularly by younger riders: insurance. Possibly down to as little as half what you'll pay for a 600, which can mean a massive difference. Might mean a few extra quid to spend on getting that nice little race can, getting it dynajetted and making sure you do beat the 600s. Hey, what a surprise, it's another 400 that turns in quicker than you can possibly think about it. Actually, I found the riding position somehow even more cramped than the others. It is slightly different, but when you're this squashed up, the slightest change in angle does make a big difference to your comfort. Once you've settled in though, it is again superb. All the power is right up at the top of the rev range. It sounds glorious and it goes like fury. Perhaps the mid-range could do with a bit of a boost, but then this is, as we've said, the most flexible of the 400s, and I'm sure you can tune your way around that with a bit of work. The handlebars are low, very, very low. The yoke itself dips down and they're clipped on below that onto the fork stanchions, which means you really are hunched over this thing. Do you know, I'm really falling for this whole 400 thing. I'm actually falling in love with the whole idea of them, and I think apart from the performance, it's partly because the smaller the bikes get, the more toy-like they are, the more there's something you really feel you can own, possibly even stick it under your arm and take it home with you if it's going to get wet outside. And also, the smaller they get, the nicer the details, the finishing on little bits and pieces. This FZR might look a bit sharp, a bit brutal, but as you look closer, it's really quite delicate. Mind you, this exposed part of the frame here looks extremely sturdy. It's a real tactile thing with this rough finish on it. You really feel it's holding the bike together and pinning it in at this little waspy waist here. Massive, massive swing arm for such a small wee beastie. Tiny little disc on the back, but up front the brakes are fearsome. I really did have myself risking some nasty damage on the back of the tank first time I tried using those. Two twin pot calipers make absolutely sure that for a bike weighing about as much as a box of matches, you're going to stop very quickly indeed. Nicely shaped little rear indicators as well, tapering back. Surprisingly, don't forget this is a 10-year-old bike. Just looking at it, it really hasn't aged. I really like the FZR. It might be the less popular of the 400s, and it's certainly going to be cheaper than many of the others that we've looked at in the past. But that extra flexibility is the key to it for me. The thing feels race ready. It sits there and says, right, what are you going to do to make me faster? It wouldn't take much to make absolutely sure that on a good country lane, in the hands of even a reasonably competent rider, this little FZR 400 will be whipping any 600.